Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. This is season 2, which is all about hiring and company culture, and I'm here with my co-host, Annelle Barnett.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us. Today, we are going to talk about the candidate persona. How do you build out a persona to know exactly who you're going for and hire with intent? So, Annelle, tee it up. What's a candidate persona?
Well, a candidate persona is similar to what is known as a buyer persona in marketing terms. So basically, it identifies who the candidate is. It helps you understand who they are, what are their triggers, what's their personality and their culture, what are success factors and things about the actual candidate, and then how you go about hiring them. Candidates obviously have a decision in the matter as well, and so you want to be able to, as a company or as a hiring manager, you want to be able to put your best foot forward in order to earn that candidate's willingness to come and work for you.
Yeah, so with that candidate persona, what we're really doing is we're going from saying we need to fill a role and posting a position to really understanding what does that person look like? Who are they? What type of experience do they have? What is their personality? How do they fit into the team? And really spending extra time to get the right fit, not just a butt in a seat.
Correct. Right? Yes. Yeah. So everybody has different things that matter to them. So, for instance, like an analytical person is probably in the interview process is probably going to be concerned with what your process is for hiring. So if it's very lackadaisical and very, you don't do what you say you're going to do. If you say that you're going to follow up with them on Friday, but you follow up with them on Tuesday, then they're actually going to take note of that. So really understanding who that individual is and how they're going to be evaluating you is as important as evaluating them for their skill sets.
Yeah, definitely. So what are the things that you start off with when you're building a candidate persona? Kind of what's the first view of that? What are the attributes you're looking at in order to narrow down the search?
Yeah, so there are several different, I guess a persona, or at least the personas that I work with, is set up in a tab system. So you have 6 different tabs. You have the actual candidate persona profile, so that's who the individual is. Then you have their personality is the next tab. Success factors is tab number 3. Perceived behaviors is number 4, and then the candidate's journey, and then finally company culture and how that aligns. So those are the different elements that make up a candidate persona. But you do start with the persona profile, which is going to be in marketing. We always name these people. So for instance, marketing operations, Mary. You want to identify what different kinds of titles this individual could currently have when you're looking for them. What is their, education level that you're looking for? You obviously want to know that they live within commutable distance of your location, and then, potentially any tools that they would use in this role. Their responsibilities, how they're evaluated, and then on this first tab, information and resources that they trust, because you need to know how to find them. So if they're somebody that's looking at certain websites all the time, or certain magazines, or any kind of publications, then that's where you're going to find them. And so identifying that in advance of the interview process is a good way to really hone in your strategy.
Yeah, so right out of the gate on the first tab of this system, we're looking at their general persona.
Right.
And we're digging in a lot deeper, right? We're not just posting, we're not posting that job opening. We're saying, how far from the office should they live? What is the maximum distance that we think they're willing to drive? So For that specific question, tell me about how you think that affects hiring and, the company culture match and other employee retention strategies. Like, how does the miles from the office play in?
Yeah, well, everybody is different. So some people are more tolerant of a long commute than others. But I've, for instance, had a situation in the past where somebody was, one of the things that they were really concerned about in the role that they were going to take is a great work-life balance. And they lived an hour and 15 minutes away from where this position was going to be, and so that's a 2.5 hour commute every day, every single day, 5 days a week, and it's almost impossible to have a work-life balance if you're spending 2.5 hours in the car every day and then 8 to 10 or however many hours that you spend at the actual job. So that's an example of that not working, even though they thought that it would be okay. It's just, it's almost like saving them from themselves, because it's just not over time.
And if for some reason they're highly motivated to make a move into a new position, they probably try and sell you on that even harder about how little of an impact it has.
Right.
But again, going back to some of the things we talked about in past episodes, like, you can probably dig into the distance between where they've lived based on their jobs that they've had.
Exactly.
And find some correlations there and hopefully save them from themselves, right? If every job they've ever had has been within 5 miles and this one's 20 miles, then they can be the best marketing person that you have in your list, but you might have to pass on them if you don't want to see them leave later.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I then get the other side of that when I'm interviewing candidates and ask why they're leaving their current position. And the first answer is, well, it is a 45-minute commute. And so I can completely understand why they want to find something closer to their house, but, perhaps that would have been a good thought before they accepted the position. So.
Yeah. You definitely never know what kind of situations people are in, financially or work environments. And they try to make those, they sometimes make moves that are incongruent with kind of the long-term goal, I think.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So once you have this profile built out, what's the next thing that you're looking at?
So the next tab covers personality, which I'm sure that you can handle that question a little bit better than me. But from a high level, it's what is their behavior style, what kind of personality traits do they have, what are the strengths and weaknesses that we're looking for based on that personality type, and then what are their motivators or rewards.
Yeah, so, given that we work with you on doing some of these personality assessments for clients and making sure that it's a good fit, the behavior style, those traits, work rewards are all huge factors in that. When it comes to those, first is just the overall style. Is the style congruent with the role that you're trying to fill? So when you're posting, which one was this, Mary? What was her name?
Marketing operations Mary.
Operations Mary. So she's an operations person.
Right.
She has to make sure the trains run on time, maybe meet some of those goals. So she's probably a certain style, like an initiator.
Right.
And we want to make sure that she's goal-driven and probably fast-paced in certain ways, and that's congruent with the people that we're getting in. So we're actually able to look at all the data that is out there and say, this is the profile of the person that we want to come in. So when they take a behavior assessment, these are the only people that are going to be a match and where we think we're going to be successful.
Right.
And then with that, we also get the work rewards and motivators. So we're able to say, okay, this person is motivated by these 3 factors. They're either, they're motivated by work travel or planned time off or additional vacation time. What does that look like, and what do we need to do to offer them a position and reward them in a way that they're going to be successful?
Right.
So all kinds of ways that personality comes in to make sure that it's congruent with the role. And like you said, sometimes we have to save people from themselves.
Right.
I know we had one recently where we had a kind of a marketing analytics person that was going to do research, get together numbers, see which campaigns were successful. And for us, that's a very specific profile. And we had somebody come in that was more of a frontline marketing person. And as we dug deeper, they were like, oh, yeah, well, I don't like really putting together all these numbers. I don't like doing those things. And you're like, wait, why did you, send in your resume?
Right.
Like, as we uncovered and peeled back the onion, we figured out that they weren't a fit.
Right.
So that's really focusing on the personality and being intentional about that.
Right.
So after personality, what's the next part of the candidate persona?
So then we have success factors, which is basically what do we have to offer this candidate, and what results or outcomes are they looking for. So that goes into what does Mary want, what does Mary care about, what kind of technology stack do we have to offer Mary? Because Mary, an operations person is typically going to be working with a lot of technology in marketing. And so they want to know that they can work with the really cool tools. And then what exciting projects will they get pretty much on, at the beginning? What can we entice Mary with that will make Mary excited to come work for us? So I think that's actually, those are things that clients often, or hiring managers and companies are often not thinking about, but are really important for Mary.
Yeah, and with the job outlook that we have right now, where we're actually really competing for the best talent,
Right.
there's many jobs are already filled and people are leaving to go to other places. Those are factors that maybe companies haven't had to deal with before.
Right.
Like, what's the technology stack? Well, many people don't want to use an advanced application where they have everything they need, like a full marketing automation, and then be handed the small business email marketing tool and realize they lost all of their power because they don't have the data that they need to make decisions, things like that. I like the idea of thinking about what they want, what they're looking for, because that's definitely a huge factor.
Right.
I know, we had this kind of come up many years ago where we were interviewing a marketing person, and this person had a very pointed question in that they were like, well, what's your budget? What's your spend? So if you hire me, what's my budget going to be to go out and spend?
That's a huge one.
And we were like, oh, we don't really have our stuff together on that right now. Like, it was something we were looking at doing. We didn't get most of our leads through marketing at the time. It was like this new initiative, and it gave us another way to think about it. And we ended up passing on that person, knowing that like they would be a really good person to have, that they were highly paid, and they were used to having a significant, we come to find out, a significant budget to go attack those issues that we didn't have at the time.
Yeah.
So although we felt like it was a perfect match, we decided to pass just because some of the incongruency there.
And I think that was a smart decision, because if you go from having a massive budget as a marketer to having a shoestring budget, you're really gonna. Yeah. That individual is really going to struggle and not be happy, and then you aren't going to get the outcome that you want as a hiring company either.
Yeah, I think from that interaction, it was like, okay, maybe we need to post a guerrilla marketing position, like somebody that goes out and makes things happen on a shoestring at that point in time, or just kind of figures it out and tells us what we should be doing, based on where that company was at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's the next thing that we're looking at after the success
The next
factors?
thing would be the perceived barriers. So it's basically what attitudes or concerns may prevent this candidate from leaving their current job to coming to your company. So, I'm really comfortable here. What can you offer me to make this worth my while? Your company is smaller than where I was before. How will I be assured that my job's going to be here? What's the security of the organization? What's my opportunity for growth? So basically, this is putting all of the objections on paper that the candidate may have, so that you understand how to address those objections. Just like in a sales kind of position, you're selling your company to this candidate, and whether you believe it or like it or not, these candidates have a lot of power these days.
Yeah.
So this is how you overcome objections and win them over as your future employer.
Yeah, and I know on the Company Culture Check video series that we do, we're interviewing people with amazing company culture. Right. So, there's different ways, there's perceived barriers, I think, in people making those shifts from, oh, well, what do I have here versus what am I going to have in your organization? Is that going to be better? Is that going to be worse?
Right.
Am I willing to do a little horse trading for certain aspects? And you really got to dig into those and have some answers ready for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could be blindsided as a hiring person.
Yeah. And one of the things to add about these personas is when they're really great is when you have multiple interviewers. So multiple people interviewing the same candidate, because if everyone is using the same persona to find this individual, then everyone's answers are the same. And so you're getting a consistent response from everyone in the organization, instead of one person has, this thought and another person has this thought. And of course, everything, you don't want to make anything up. You want everything to be true.
Right.
But if everyone's aligned on the same conversation, the same story that they're giving to the candidate, then they really see that everyone is aligned, and it gives them a really good perspective of your company.
Yeah, and we see that takes a little bit of training to make sure that it's a fluid process.
Right.
There's some consistency from person to person, because you don't want one person to say it's one way and then the interviewer asks the same question and they get a fundamentally different answer from the next person that already works at the organization, because that's probably not going to come across very well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which actually leads us into the next tab, which is the candidate's journey. So we touched on this a little bit before. I'm an analytical person. I'm going to want the interview process to be on time, to be, for you to do what you say you're going to do. They want to know that you're process driven, which you can actually see in an interview process.
Yeah.
That their family is a factor in this decision often. And, what do you offer that benefits their family? So it's basically, on this journey of interviewing, how are you going to treat me? Or how are you going to treat Mary, basically? So.
Yeah, and I think there's a definite difference in a company that looks at what that journey is and has it mapped really well, and the ones who are just completely ad hoc, right? Because oftentimes that journey starts with the first interaction. It's either a resume coming in or a recruiter bringing in a resume, an introduction. There's something that happens to initiate that conversation. And from then on, the company's on stage. Right. You're on stage, you're selling, you're in front of that client or this prospective employee in this case. And, you have to make sure that that's a solid experience across the board, because at any point in that experience, if they get a bad taste and they're interviewing for 2 other jobs as well, they're going to notice that very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then so the final tab, I think you can cover better than me, which is the company culture tab. So it's matching the individual with the culture. So
yeah, definitely. So we hammer it on company culture and want to make sure that all candidates are a good match. So we are always ensuring that we have company culture-based questions that we're asking them to make sure that person, who they are, matches who the company is, right? How they operate is going to match with how the organization operates, whether, in the Chick-fil-A example, that's servant leadership. If it's one of our examples, it's, are they a technologist? Do they love technology? Do they really get it? Do they live it through and through? Are they a reader? Are they not? What are all those different aspects that are ingrained into the company? And a lot of times we can look at either the company culture questions that we come up, or we can look at the company values and come up with reverse questions to match them on the values and make sure that they're in line. So knowing those ahead of time and making sure people are a good fit is going to add into that candidate persona and make sure we're getting the right match. Right.
Yeah, it's basically your roadmap for hiring this individual and finding the person who matches your organization, and that you match what they're looking for as well. So it's aligning the two through this document, basically, this blueprint of this individual.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of factors at play in making sure that you're not only attracting them, but you're putting your best foot forward. You're giving them a good experience as they come in. You're really selling them on the position, because it's getting harder and harder to get and retain good talent, and then making sure they're a fit for the organization.
Right?
Yep.
Yes.
So if you are hiring today and you don't have a candidate persona, take a look at what we've talked about or listen to what we've talked about today. Come up with a persona, come up with a roadmap, and understand how you're going to get the right person in the right seat so that you are hiring with the best intent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit epicculture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at epicculture1 or email at podcast@epicculture.co.